Now we can start. All right. We're going to start 2 minutes early. Oh, well. Deal with it. All right, so today we're going to talk about HTML and Google Glass, and we're going to talk about how you can develop using existing HTML, CSS, JavaScript technology for all kinds of devices, but we're going to focus on Google Glass today because it's obviously it's kind of a new crazy thing, and it also is a very different interface, and you're going to see how easy it is to just adapt your current web skills to use pretty much any device that's out there. Who's a web developer? Anybody? Okay. Designers? Couple? Yeah. Designer developers? Oh, yeah, of course you are. Of course, everybody is. So what we're going to focus on, though, is probably more the development side of it. We're going to be looking at some code. We're going to touch on Sencha Touch, so I should probably introduce myself. I'm Ross Gerbasi. I am a senior software engineer at Sencha. We create a mobile framework in HTML5 for all sorts of great devices, write once, publish anywhere. That's kind of our main focus. This isn't going to be specifically about Sencha, though we do believe it's a great tool to build for all the different platforms out there. Our goal is HTML5 is everywhere, and that's what we want to focus on. There are definitely reasons not to use a framework for something like Google Glass if you're trying to just hit a very specific, performance metric, or there isn't a lot you really need it to do. So there are going to be a lot. You can use whatever you want is essentially what we're trying to say. We're going to be talking about three main technologies to make all this happen. Just out of curiosity, is anyone a mobile hybrid app developer on with web? So using web, HTML, CSS, JavaScript for mobile apps. Okay, not so much. Has anyone heard of PhoneGap or Cordova? Yeah, a few people. Most people have. All right. Well, that's what this is actually going to be focused on. So if anyone's interested in PhoneGap or Cordova, the technology in there that lets us leverage our existing knowledge to go to Android and iOS and all that stuff is also what's going to take us to Google Glass. It's going to be the exact same thing. So we're going to focus on a couple techs. The first one I'm going to talk about is Sencha Touch. Just get out of the way. Essentially, we're a component-based framework with an MVC structure. So very geared towards enterprise development. We are one of the very few frameworks out there that is component-oriented. So if you look at frameworks like, I wouldn't really consider jQuery a framework, but if you look at like Angular or all the different frameworks that kind of lay a foundation, most of them kind of ignore the idea of visual components and they lay a structural foundation. Well, in Sencha Touch, you're building things with visual components. So you're building buttons or carousels or tab bars or those kind of visual components are what you build with. And then, so we'll be looking at that a little bit. As I mentioned, we're going to be focusing on Apache Cordova, which is essentially, kind of imagine it like templates for all the different operating systems out there. So it's a template for iOS and a template for Android and a template for BlackBerry, but it's all built into this master tooling. So you don't really need to think about that. You just say, I want my web app to go on Android, and it creates an Android project, put your web app in it, and will create you a native app with your web app stuck inside of it. And that's really what Cordova is doing for us. There's a whole, has anyone used Node.js? A little bit? Okay. Cordova has a whole Node.js-based command line interface that allows us to create applications, push applications to devices, do all the different stuff that we want. Now, there's a little bit of confusion. I'll talk kind of momentarily about, have people heard of PhoneGap? Yeah, PhoneGap versus, anyone know what the difference is between PhoneGap and Cordova? Yeah, no one does. I don't really either. Essentially, this is my take on it. PhoneGap is owned by Adobe. Apache Cordova is the open source code behind all this. Essentially what Adobe does is when Cordova is in a stable spot, they'll take a snapshot of it and they'll pretty much rebrand it as PhoneGap. And then on top of PhoneGap is tooling. And that's what Adobe's good at, is they're good at building tools. So the tools you can get for PhoneGap are things like cloud build services, or they make a really great app for your phone that allows you to test your app without actually having to install it on devices. You can essentially just install the PhoneGap app, browse to any location, and it wraps your app up automatically, so you don't need to be installing it on your client devices or get client IDs if you're on iOS or whatever that is. You just tell them, go to the App Store, install this, and then browse to this URL, and you'll see what the app's going to look like when I put it in the App Store. So they make a bunch of really cool tooling for stuff like that. The cloud build services essentially allow you to take your app, zip it up, send it to Adobe, and then they have servers running Xcode and Android and all that kind of junk, and it makes your apps on the server, and then you just download it back. So if you wanted to make iOS apps on Windows, that's one way you could do it, by submitting it up to the cloud and then downloading it back down, which is pretty cool. So, but when it comes down to it, the core, what you guys are writing in JavaScript, is not going to change. We're using the same stuff. This is a real quick example of what like the camera API would look like. We're not going to sit on this long, but from PhoneGap or Cordova, it's essentially navigator.camera.getPicture. You pass in callback function for success, callback function for failure, and then some object with various options, quality, whatever stuff you want. That's kind of a simple look at how easy it is to start communicating with the native side of code from JavaScript. And this code will also work when you get to Google Glass. Same concept. We talked about that. So moving on, we'll talk slightly about this, but we're not going to get into it too much. Sencha Command is another application you install from the Sencha side that is essentially our command line tool. It allows you to generate Sencha apps and build your Sencha app. It's a compiler. Though we don't really compile, essentially what we're doing is minifying your project, shrinking everything up, getting rid of all the white space, concatenating all your JavaScript files, all that kind of stuff for delivery so that it's going to run the best on the device. Whereas when you're developing, everything's open and you can go through and debug separate files and work through things. All right, so Google Glass, that's what we're going to focus on today. These are kind of does anyone own Google Glass? 1, 2, a few people? Yes. Welcome, explorers. Explorers. All right, so Google Glass, pretty basic, and we break it down. There's a 5 megapixel camera in the front. We can record 720p video out of it. It actually has a bone conduction transducer, which sits on the back of your ear. That's it. I don't have it here, but there's a little earphone you can plug in. They also come in stereo. Goes right into the micro USB that's at the bottom. But if you didn't have that plugged in, this kind of feels like a vibrating tickle on the back of your ear, but that's what actually allows you to hear sound without anything plugged into your ears, just from the glasses. They have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, 12 gigs of usable memory, and everything synced up to the cloud. So every time you take a picture, it goes up to your Google account. Micro USB for charging. And honestly, I feel like on a normal day use, I'm getting about 6 hours, which is not ideal, but that's realistically where I'm at. If you're recording video or taking pictures a lot, that's going to dramatically go down. But so yeah, if anyone out there thinks Google people are walking around recording your life with their glasses, they may be getting like 15 minutes at most if you're lucky. So it's not happening. But what's important for web developers? So right now we are on Explorer Edition 17.2 of Google Glass. That's the versioning that comes through as we get updates. The big deal with that is that we're actually running KitKat on Google Glass. So we're running Android 4.4.2, which is giving us Chrome 30 inside of Google Glass. So when you're thinking about browsers and support, we're essentially running Chrome 30 inside this little, sunglasses that we have here. We're getting like a 427 by 240 resolution. That's what's getting reported back. So as far as web development goes, you could pretty much just imagine it like another screen size. It's just something else you have to deal with. You're used to probably responsive design already, so you can kind of just imagine now I got something smaller I got to deal with. And it's much smaller. And as far as input onto this device, we're talking touch and gestural input and voice input. So to do touch input, you're talking this touch panel on the side of the frames. So you'll be swiping forward and backward and touching on the side of the frame. And then as far as voice input, you just talk to it like a creepy person walking down the street. On the inside, there is another camera, and it actually is pointed back at your eye. And currently, I haven't been able to figure out if we actually have access to any information as far as tracking the eye, but I do know that there's obviously a camera back there. It's tracking when I put the glasses on. It's able to see my eye. That's how it automatically turns on when it comes on my face. And then also they have a built-in wink feature. So if I were to wink, I could make it take pictures, which is even creepier than before. So trying to think of the creepiest way to take pictures of someone is winking at them. So we got that going for us. Real quick, we'll take a look at some of these browser differences. I just want to open this up. What was that? There is no selfie. You could mirror it. If you put a mirror in front of you, it would be a weird selfie of your eyeball. So just a real quick look. I'm guessing everyone in here I'm guessing everyone's heard of the web and browsers. All right, so we have these things, and they get updated, and the old ones suck, and the new ones are the best. That's how it always works. So with this, we're just doing a quick comparison. If you guys haven't been to caniuse.com, super handy. It tells you essentially what you can and can't do in different browsers. So you could say, what supports WebSockets? And it'll give you a nice big list of all the browsers that do and don't support these things. So anyway, we're looking at browser support between Android 4.2 to 4.3 and 4.4. So essentially, we have 4.4 on Google Glass, and 4.2 and 4.3 is actually in a majority of the phones that are out there. You'd be lucky if you get like a Nexus 5 or a Galaxy S5 that's been updated to the latest version. But realistically, what we're interested in is this list of stuff right here that's in red in older browsers and in green right now. And things like web workers, WebSockets, Shadow DOM, animation frame, SVG filters, CSS filters, all those things are actually supported on Google Glass, which are actually pretty hard to get on other devices. So the point of this, the browser on this device is actually pretty far ahead of even where you are. And Chrome is going to become your dev environment, because when it all comes down to it, you're just running in Chrome on Google Glass anyway. So hooray, we don't all need to go buy $1,500 Google Glasses. We can develop on our desktop in Chrome and then give them to the sucker who went and bought them for $1,500 and ask them to test it. So we got that going for us. And I'm going to show you guys all how to do that. Today, we will go through that. If I can close this window. Yes. All right, moving on. That's it, code. I don't really like a ton of slides. I'm a developer. I like to look at different code and how to make things. So we're going to take a look at a couple examples. We're going to see how all this works. Mainly, I'm going to set up my dev environment for working with Glass. I think that's probably the most useful thing. Everyone wants to know, okay, I know how to make web pages. I probably can make enough with CSS and JavaScript. Now, how can I understand what this is going to look like on someone's face, and what do I do about it? So let's figure it out. All right. So first things first. Actually, you know what? First things first, I'll give you guys an idea of what this looks like. So if I put these on my face and I turn them on, and I'll start this thing up. Right now I'm seeing the time, but this is the screen monitor. So that's roughly here in front of my eye right now. And as I swipe the side of this, you see this is my calendar, and I can go again, and this is my flight back to Chicago tomorrow in the morning, very early. This is a Blackhawks game, which is extremely sad. Of course, you guys are probably happy about that. Some weather, different things like that. All the different settings I have. And if I go over to the other side of my timeline, I get something about California street cable cars, which came from some app that thought it was important to me to know about this. And then if I keep going, I'll get like missed phone calls and text messages and Google Hangout stuff and all that kind of jazz. If I tap here, you can see I could scroll through, and these are all the different submenu options. So that's essentially like the UI navigation for this. It's one big, long timeline, and you tap to go into places, then you scroll through another menu, and you tap, or you talk to Glass, which is, again, very delightful in a crowded space. So now that you know kind of roughly what it looks like and what we're trying to make, let's see if we can't simulate this. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to really quick make a Cordova app. So there were a few people that have used Cordova. A couple people. All right. Has anyone used the command line interface through Node? No? All right. Well, this is what it looks like. This is how easy it is to make an app. Once you've installed, yes. That's a great idea. I don't know this. Dim. Can someone maybe hit one of those buttons? Just start turning things off. That's better. We got it over here. Can you guys see that better? Yeah? You guys missed the whole front part. There was gold in there, I promise. All right, well, good. Yeah, there was a unicorn, so make sure you put that in your imagination. Make it bigger? Bigger. That I can do if I can figure out. There it is. Oh, I just blew it right off the side of the screen. Okay, is that better to read? Beautiful. All right. I'm going to go to my desk. That's not where we're going. Get out of there. That's where we want to go. All right. Cordova, create test app. All right, that's it. We created our first Cordova application, so moving on from there. That literally is it. It creates this structure for you. If you're creating just a vanilla app in Cordova, all your web stuff goes in the www folder. You don't need to really worry about the rest. Just so you know, plugins will obviously end up in the plugins folder. All your platforms will go in here, so you'll get an iOS folder, an Android folder, a BlackBerry folder. Merges is a special folder where you can actually add an iOS folder in there, and then anything in that folder will get merged into your iOS build only. So maybe you have some images or sounds or something that should only be on iOS and not on Android. You can add them into the merges folder. Hooks you don't really need to mess with. It's build process hooks. And then this config XML file is what's going to allow you to configure your app. They've abstracted it out to an XML file. But we're not super concerned about that at this point. We just want to see what this app looks like. So I'm going to go into there, and I'm going to go ahead and do Cordova platform add Android. So I would like to add an Android project to this. Done. Awesome. That's great. And then I'm going to go ahead and do Cordova serve. Now it says on localhost 8000, I can go to localhost 8000. Hey, is that right? Do I have two things running on localhost 8000 right now? This really was poorly planned. Let's do that again. Let's get rid of the slideshow. Localhost 8000. There we go. And then I can pick the platform. I only have one right now. And then I can, on the phone, obviously these alert messages don't come up. That's how Cordova communicates with the native side. You just cancel them. But you can see this is the dummy template Cordova app that exists out of the box from Apache. And you can see our server's running. All is great. But what does this look like on Glass, and how can I start to test this? And this is going to translate to every kind of mobile app. Does anyone already know? I'm guessing you guys know about Chrome's developer tools, like the console and the stuff. Does anyone know about the secret hidden emulation tab? All right, the few people that have it. All right, so this is boring for everybody. We're going to unlock it anyway. So in the Chrome developer tools, when you're looking at its normal stuff, obviously, I think you guys have a rough idea. You can go through this. This is how you debug and develop your app. If you hit escape anywhere inside these tools, you get to the super secret panel. And inside here is where you could turn on things like paint rectangles and all sorts of different stuff that will help you determine the speed and performance of your app. What we're interested, though, is in the emulation tab. So, for example, if I was making an iOS app, I could drop this down and say, I want to see what this is going to look like on an iPhone 5. I can hit emulate and then reload the page. And then that's what my app will look like on an iPhone 5. So that's awesome for everybody. And you'll also notice that my cursor changed to a little dot. That's because we're no longer dispatching mouse events into the app. Chrome is now going to be dispatching touch events into the app. So touch start, touch move, touch end, all that kind of stuff. So it's a pretty dang good emulation of a touch device. And if you need to, you can actually go in here to these sensors and you can turn on emulate geolocation or accelerometer, and you could shake the thing around and emulate all those kind of things. All right, so that's all well and good, but we wanna test Google Glass, and of course it's not in the drop-down list, so we have to make it ourselves. And let me open up the settings for Google Glass so everyone could just see them. And I'll try to make this bigger also. Let's just take this all, and what do you think about 24? I think that's going to be about right. All right. So these are the settings that we are going to use to emulate Google Glass inside of Chrome. It's pretty simple. All you need to do is go back into Chrome, into that developer tool, and pick any preset, doesn't matter which one. And you'll go to the screen size and you'll type in, 427 by 240. You'll make this one. You'll check both of these. You'll go to the user agent and you'll copy this user agent, big long user agent. You can notice, like I said, it's running Android 4.4.2. You'll This is Glass version 1. I got them right here. Yeah. What's the best place for me to put them? I could, you can give me your address, I'll mail them out maybe. I don't know. I'll figure something out. There's got to be a place that this facility or this organization will let me post these things. I'm assuming I can put my slides up on the website, but something like that. Otherwise, come up here, get my email. I will send it to you personally from my email. But yeah, we could take a picture and Instagram it with a filter. So that would be good. Make sure it's a vintage filter. All right. So what's that? Yeah, there you go. Inspiring people everywhere. All right. So all you have to do then is paste that user agent in here. And then the last thing you want to do is make sure that the touch screens turn on. I'll switch back for everyone taking pictures. Click. Click. One more click. Click. Okay, we're good. All right. So now if I were to reload this and hit escape a couple times, there you go. That is exactly what I would see in front of my face in that size, exact dimensions. I mean, the padding is down, like everything's perfect. This is essentially what we would design for if we were doing Google Glass. And this is pretty much a perfect little dev environment. Now the downside is you got to keep typing these in because Chrome doesn't let me save a preset. So you got to go in there and type those in every time. But it's not the most horrible thing. There's only a few in there. So.
Are these settings saved somewhere in an XML file?
Nope. Nah, I looked. I tried. I couldn't find anything. I was thinking, yeah, maybe I could go like patch an XML file, stick it in something. If you find that, mail me back at my address and let me know where that is, because that would be really helpful. All right, cool, well and good, but we all know we can only get so far with this, and we all want to go buy Google Glass as soon as we can. And then once we get our app on there, how are we going to debug that? Well, it's actually really simple. Just how many people already know about remote debugging in Chrome via Android? So yeah, a few. A couple people haven't seen it yet. All right, well, this is going to, if anyone's been doing any Android mobile development prior to 4.4.3 or 4.4, you've struggled with probably what you would do is Winery or some kind of add-on tool that lets you inspect your app remotely while it's on the device. Something that would allow you to see like what's running or what things are happening, all this kind of stuff. Well, as of 4.4 with Chrome, we can now do that all through Chrome, and we don't need any other stuff. And I'm going to show you guys how that works. So I have a demo app on here. I'll show you guys how I built it, but I'm just going to open it really quick. So I'm just going to go into here, and I'll try to run it in this thingy at the same time. But I will say that when running this screen monitor, Glass can get pretty hot on me, and that's not comfortable. So we're gonna see how long this goes until I burn my face off. So let's not go to that extreme. All right, so this is, take a second. All right, there's the loading. This is just a web page loading inside an app that I built. And you can see here some kind of native stuff that we have, and I can scroll through it. It's beautiful. We'll look more detailed into this app, but I'm just going to switch over to Chrome, go to this little tab under Tools, Inspect Devices. And since I'm plugged in over USB, my Glass is going to show up right here. And you can see the two of them. Here's my app. If I hit Inspect, I'm now able to go into the elements, and as I roll over these, I'm seeing the normal boxes show up over the page. I can actually inspect the app while it's on Glass right now. So I'm seeing, hold on, let me bring it back up because I closed it for you guys, didn't I? Let me see if I can switch back here. Here we go. Here we go. Come back. There you go. So you can see the boxes are highlighting, and you can see all the, as I roll over things, see if I can get both these on the screen at the same time. There we go. You see all the viewport stuff. I can go through all that. And I can go into the console log, and I can start checking things. So I can go say navigator.userAgent. That's where I got the user agent to put in to Google Chrome. It's right there. I could do something like screen.width. There's the 427. These are where all that information came from. This is where we're able to find all that stuff. But I'm essentially running JavaScript commands against the app that's running on Glass right now. And if I were to put a debugging point in there, it would stop, and I could step through code, which is pretty awesome. Really awesome, actually, as a web developer. All right, so we got that going. That's how we'll do remote debugging on the device. I just got a notification. Someone texted me, so we'll wait to see if that pops up on my face. All right, so moving on from that, we're going to take a look now at, well, let's take a look at what this app does really quick. I'll show you guys that, and then we'll see how we built it. Now, this app was built in Sencha Touch, and I will show you guys. Let me open that thing again. Ba, ba, ba. Come on. Open up. It's a convenient time to not open. Hey, I want to be back here. Sencha Glass. What the heck? Well, that's not working at all. Well, that's okay. We will look through that app, but what we're going to do is rebuild it for it. I don't know why. Sometimes this thing certainly doesn't react like I would like it to. It should be launching an app. Oh, now it does. It heard me. It heard me. I was going to give up on it. All right. So now that we're in here, the first thing we could see is that we're able to get, yeah, we're able to get all the device information about my phone, so my UUID, all that kind of stuff. Now, if I swipe forward, I swipe this way. This is a sub-menu test. So again, this is all just HTML, CSS. So if I tap on this, you'll see a menu comes up, and I could swipe through that menu, and I have this kind of going, and these are sub-menus, and then when I swipe down, it brings me back. So again, it's all built in there. Yeah?
Are swipes like treats the whole page as being swiped?
Pretty much, yeah. Yep. Yeah, there is, technically this thing is mapping from this little thing to the screen on my face.
So you meant an XY coordinate?
Yeah, you could try to figure it out, but it's so thin that, I mean, it would be very difficult. Essentially, you are using full page gestures all the time. But all right, so let's move forward here. This is an example of using the Cordova barcode scanner. So here, if I go ahead and click scan, you guys will all see yourself here in a second, I imagine. Oh yeah, there's everybody. That's what it looks like from my face. You guys can kind of see it. And then if I open up this QR code that I have and I make it bigger, and I'm going to come down here and look at it. Convenient way to look at things. Get it. Get it. Man, I could have said that faster. All right, well, there it is. HTML5DevConf.com is what was embedded in that QR code. It's a great way to do things. It's pretty much the future of how we'll all be doing stuff. We won't even talk to each other anymore. Just scan each other with our faces. All right. Yeah, everything is definitely running pretty slow on here right now. I'm sure it has to do with this screen monitor, but I'm not going to mess with it. Whoa, man. Whoa, man. Getting away from me. Are you done? All right. We're done with that. There's a couple other things in there, and I really did want to show you one of them, but everything's running so janky right now. So that's weird. Normally this is pretty nice, but sorry guys, not looking very good right now. Oh, at least I restarted this time. Let's see if it works better. Beep, bop, 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 bop. All right. Come on. Nope. Still pretty crappy. That's a little better. All right. So in this one, essentially what we're using is the standard HTML5 orientation information. So as I tilt my head back, so this is just a blue div on the screen that's getting 3D transforms. You missed it. It's gone. It's gone. Oh, I'm getting text messages. I'm getting all sorts of stuff. Anyway, it's built into HTML5. We have the normal orientation control. And it actually, let's open it up on the computer because we can look at that exact same thing. So I forgot, we have an emulator. I don't know why I'm killing myself over this thing. So here we have a Sencha Touch app. And I'm going to show you guys a little bit through it. But again, learning Sencha Touch is kind of a whole whole new ball of wax, but I'm going to show you guys as much as I can and try to get you interested a little bit, see what you think. But again, you could build this in anything you want. Yeah, anything. I mean, it's just Chrome. I think you'd missed that at the beginning, but we're running Chrome 30 on here. That's essentially what we are. All right, so here's that same app, and if I go ahead and emulate it, you can see there it is in the emulator, and this is essentially what we all saw in front of my face, and you can see I could swipe through much faster. Another nice thing is that the same orientation is in my laptop, so I'm able to test that in here also. If I were to shake my laptop around, it'd be like shaking my head, I guess. And then this was a screen you guys didn't get to see. It essentially is telling us the gestures that are coming off this device. We have quite a collection. So I'll go through all those, though. We'll take a look. How many people have used Cordova plugins of some kind? So either the camera or geolocation or any of the plugins. A few? No? Nothing. No one. Screw those plugins. All right. Well, the plugins are really helpful, and you should probably use them next time you get the chance. There's a bunch out there. Contacts, accelerometer, GPS, all those kind of things are add-on plugins right now for Cordova. And what we're using right here is the Cordova Glass plugin that is conveniently located on my GitHub page. So this plugin is what allows us to use Cordova for Glass development. So when you go and add just like you'd add any plugin to Cordova, you'll just add this one, and that's through Cordova plugin add, and then you paste in a URL to the GitHub, and it adds that plugin into your collection of plugins. What is it doing? What's this thing doing? So it adds voice trigger prompt to your Android app, which is really the only difference between a Glass app and an Android app. They both work off the same SDK. They're all the same stuff. But what you needed in your Android app for Glass is a voice trigger, because that's how you launch apps on Glass, is through some kind of tag. So by default, it'll say Hello Cordova, but you can make that whatever you want, like start, giraffe app or whatever app you make, cat dance app. So you got that. And it also adds the developer tag to your Android manifest, because that voice prompt currently has to be approved by Google, unless you put it in developer mode, in which case you can use any voice prompts you want. So for example, if McDonald's came out with a Google Glass app and was like, okay, Glass, start open cheeseburgers, and you wanted to make an app about cheeseburgers too, we can't have conflicting names, so Google has approval process over these voice triggers that come through. The plugin also allows you a prompt. So Glass has an interesting mechanic where after you start your app, you can insert essentially a question before your app were to launch. So for example, in this, it would be OK Glass, which is what starts Glass listening for app commands. And you could say open movie search. That's my voice. That's my voice launch that opens my app. But then I can also say, I'd like to ask a question. What movie would you like to search for? And then you'd say a movie, and that would get passed into your app as soon as it started. Instead of you having to launch your app and then exit your app to get voice command, there's one question you're allowed to put in between your app and when it actually starts. And then here's the syntax to get that information back into your app. All this stuff's up on GitHub. It's a lot easier to see. Here are the native gestures that are passed in via this plugin. That's the other big thing that this plugin does, is it translates all the touch events and gestures from the touchpad into the web view. That's what it's doing, really. That's at its core. And it's going to be doing things like tap, long press, all the different swipes, all that stuff for 2 fingers, some of that stuff for 3 fingers. And then it has 2-finger scrolling, and touch finger count change. So if you touch on the side and put another finger down, you're going to get a finger changed event that has a 1 for the first parameter and a 2 for the next. So I went from 1 finger to 2 fingers. There are a couple configs you can add in. You could disable touching. You could disable gestures. You can keep your app awake forever, which I probably should have done, so that would keep the screen on instead of turning it off. You have to shut it off yourself by swiping down. Yeah?
Can you do like notifications, have it turn on the glass and show you?
Have it turn on the glass and show you a notification? Actually, Glass doesn't even do that on its own. You have to turn it on. It'll ding.
I don't mean
Yeah.
show you a new card on.
Now, for a card, it would be different. These are apps, whereas a card would be using the mirror API or like sending information to like the timeline instead of, these are actually like launching like a process, like an app. If you wanted to use something that just used the timeline and just put something in your list, that is actually a much easier process. It's actually, you create something on your server that will feed Glass, so a lot like an RSS feed. There are X number of templates for how a timeline card can look. It's like picture on the left, text, icon, text. There's a few templates you can use. And you essentially feed Glass a template, a textual template, and then it'll go through there. That's through Glass, the mirror API. Anyway, moving along. So we are going to install this. This is important, but we are going to look at the Sencha app and the actual, that's actually happening. So I'm going to show you guys how we made this. Has anyone ever used Sencha Touch? One person. Cool. Well, here we go anyway for that. So this is, has anyone ever done enterprise development outside of web development? So any kind of enterprise? A little bit? Okay. So that's C or Visual Basic or something along there? What was that? Java? Yep, Java. All right. All that stuff. All right. So the way Sencha Touch structures its app, let's close that on my face. All right. Looks like this. And we'll try, can I make this bigger? Larger. Oh, but it doesn't make this larger. Awesome. All right, well, here's the deal. Inside your Sencha Touch app, you're going to have a whole bunch of folders. There are really only two you're really concerned about. Your resources folder, which is going to have your CSS, your images. We use Sass as our precompiler for all our CSS. And then the other thing that you're really interested in is your app folder. And this is where we set up a MVC structure for your application. So unlike a lot of web apps that you see out there where we're just kind of putting everything into one big JavaScript file, with Sencha Touch, we're doing things in individual JavaScript files with a more enterprise level mentality, with the idea of packages and classes and things like that that you would kind of normally use to organize your code. And it looks something like this. This is the app.js here. If you want to see the index.js, really simple. We have a micro loader. That's the only JavaScript that comes in there. Micro loader handles loading all the stuff you need for your application. It's all based on this app.json file. Everything in Sencha Touch we use JSON descriptors for. So again, it's a component library. So you're really just telling components how they're supposed to look, how they're supposed to line up, where they're supposed to go. You're not dealing with DOM, you're not dealing with selectors. You don't really have to deal with any of that stuff. You're really just dealing with components. So an example of how this all looks is this is the very start of a basic Sencha Touch app. We run the ext.application function. We give it the object of name, all the different views we're going to use, our controllers we're going to use, and we give it a launch function, which is a lot like, what should I do first as soon as everything's ready to go? When everything's loaded and everything's ready, what do you want me to do? And all we're doing here is destroying the preloader, which are those blue background with the white dots that you guys saw at the very beginning. We destroy that from the screen. And then every Sencha Touch app has a viewport, which is, just imagine it like a big div at the very top of your page. And we're going to add something to that viewport. And it is a touchglassbasic.view.main. And inside the app folder here, we have a view folder with a main. And you can see this is how we declare that class in Sencha Touch. We say, this is going to be a touchglass.view.main. These are all the other classes we require for this to work. We can extend other things. So this is going to extend UX, a glass timeline. And then of that, these are all the items that are going to be in it. So this right here, these 34 lines of code is what creates the carousel for the main menu that lets me swipe through that. So this timeline, if we dug into it, you'll see it actually extends Sencha Touch's carousel component, which is you guys have seen a carousel. It's got like the dots at the bottom, and you usually put pictures in it, and you swipe through, and you see all the pictures. Yeah, that's what we're using as kind of our main navigation. You can see, for example, here, the first item in here is info. So if I go to info, here's all this stuff. I'm using some fakery right here. Essentially, if there's no window.device, fake it. This is what allows me to test Cordova stuff on my browser, because I don't have that information. But you see it's pretty simple, very, very simple stuff. But really the mentality is difficult to understand. We have this odd syntax here where we're describing everything through JSON instead of just coding stuff. But it allows us to keep your code very, very organized, and it allows for a bunch of people to work on all sorts of different things at the same time. We have the concept of mixins, which is essentially you could have 4 other things that this class inherits from, which is pretty cool. So you could write 4 other classes, and this would get all those different things. And the last thing, so this continues for all these different things. You guys can kind of get the idea that this is a submenu and blah, 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 blah. Use JSON to describe how it goes together. Again, I didn't want to get a ton into Sencha Touch and stuff because it's like a whole week of training on just reworking a mentality for developing in this kind of structure. But once you get in here, things work very fast. They're very focused on mobile, and they work very well for glass and all sorts of other devices too. The only other thing worth touching on here is the controller. And that's a big point in Sencha Touch development, is that our app logic is completely separate from our visual presentation. So these controllers allow us to say, all right, well, if someone clicks on the speak button, this is actually what I want you to do when someone taps on that. That's not tied to our view in any way. That's completely separated. So you can go back and change your views around and do all sorts of stuff visually, but your logic remains separate. That's kind of the breakdown of a Sencha Touch app. Again, it's a very different mentality. Just curious, how many people are like Bootstrap, jQuery, those kind of things? A few. All right. So this is probably almost looks like a foreign language at this point. It's like, you know JSON, it looks like JavaScript, but it doesn't make a lot of sense as far as reading it. And I will say, coming into Sencha Touch, it definitely has a learning curve to it as you get into it. But if you're interested at all in doing, group work with people or specifically enterprise level development, there are a lot of advantages to Sencha Touch just in your mobile app dev. I'll just show you guys real quick. This is kind of our kitchen sink app. Actually, I don't want to show you. Well, I guess I have to. But so you guys can see these are all the components that come by default in Sencha Touch. You have things, like I said, the carousel. So in here, you can see you could swipe through, swipe down, all the different kinds of carousels. We have all our different kinds of lists, our simple lists, our group lists, all that kind of jazz. These are all just JavaScript components. You just feed them data. There's no coding for this as far as you're concerned. All our toolbars, our tab bars, our overlays, all that kind of stuff. All this navigation is also built into our navigation views. You guys don't need to worry about back buttons and moving through that. Animations are in there. And of course, we have just raw touch events if you need that also. We show you guys how to use a couple of our data classes in this as well. Yeah, so there are actually a bunch. And then for more information, obviously our docs, we think they're pretty useful. Most people tell us they're not useful, but we think they're pretty useful. So here's a list of actually all the API. So if you're interested in the, let's see, button class, you could click here, and this will show you like a live preview. You can see the code editor. You can open up the live preview. You can see the button, click the button. It's amazing. You can do all this stuff. You can even change it and then go to live preview again, and it changes. You can see all the different configs. So these are all the things you can feed in through that JSON object. You can say, I want to change the class. I want to, make it a full screen button for whatever reason. I want to make, set the heights of it, all that kind of stuff. And then you can also see all of the CSS variables, all the Sass variables that are tied to that button. So if you wanted to change the font family or the icon size or any of these kind of things, you'd change those in the Sass. And then these are all the events that button will dispatch. It'll dispatch all these different things at different times, obviously. All right, so it's my spiel on Sencha Touch. It's pretty versatile. We've been using it for pretty much everything. But again, when it comes down to it, developing for Google Glass is essentially developing for Chrome. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You're developing for Chrome 30. If you could set up this little emulation thing and get your device set up right, you'll be looking at it pretty much like you're looking at it on Glass. Overall, it's been very interesting. My take on Glass, just so everyone, just because I can talk about it and you have to listen, I don't really see it hitting as a consumer product. I just don't see everybody in this room wearing Glass, like staring back at me. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. But there is a huge potential market for it in like point of sale, like employees at stores. There's a big medical, doctors. There's a lot for training and teaching, distance education, hands-on education over the internet. I think your best bet, if you are interested in trying to put together ideas for Glass, is to maybe focus on the more commercial side of them than the consumer side. It's just it's a little too awkward for everybody to be walking around with, and it's not different enough from your cell phone that I feel it really has that. You know, someone may come out with just the most amazing use case for it that everyone wants to buy it, but as of right now, I just haven't seen that big compelling reason to not just, pull my phone out and do whatever I was going to do. But there's definitely some interesting prospects here. When the price point gets down and people can start buying this, I think it'll become very interesting. So does anybody have any questions about anything? It doesn't even have to be about this. It can be about life or bakery. Anything? Yeah.
So it's not a shared environment with your phone.
It is.
Well, I mean, like, can you send information to your phone? Like,
Sure. Yeah, I forgot to mention, there's actually a My Glass app, companion app that sits on your phone. That's how, like, for example, if you want to configure the Wi-Fi in this, you can't type in passwords on Glass. So you would be typing in the password here and then sending it. Also from like the My Glass app is an example of if you have a map up, you can send the map to Glass to do like driving directions and things like that, so it's not on your phone. Obviously, the apps need to communicate over Bluetooth together. It isn't like a special...
Is that like, does Cordova or Cordova Glass, or like, is there a way to...
I don't have anything in Cordova Glass. I would not be surprised, though, if there isn't like a Bluetooth communication plugin, because it's a pretty heavy standard. I'd imagine if you wrote your app here to receive it and this one here to send it, you could probably make something happen. Yeah. Yes. Did I do that? Could they do that? Yeah. I have nothing to do with the hardware, but it sounds like, yeah, if they had like a low energy Bluetooth, as I would talk about, like a different device. Oh, sure. Yeah, if you wanted to. Again, the battery life right now is definitely a concern on Glass, so anything that's constantly running on there, you could, and I've seen people do it. It's awesome. So so there was this dude, like those USB chargers you can get on like Amazon, you like plug them in, they charge for like 4 hours, and then they give your phone battery for like ages. This dude had one, like he had a strap and it sat off his side, and he had a cord run up under his shirt, so it wasn't noticeable, and then up his neck and plugged into the bottom, so he could have like a Army caliber fully like 24-hour glassware going on. I don't know what he was looking at all day. But he was probably watching cat videos all day, just staring off at cat videos. Yeah.
Did you say it supports WebSocket, right?
Yes.
So then instead of using Bluetooth, you could actually use
Yeah.
WebSocket to communicate.
Sure could.
Battery, you think, or?
Not if you're polling over and over and over, but if it was a simple message, it would save you time. Certainly would save you time developing it. Yeah, I've actually done some tests with that. WebSockets work great. Yeah. The end? The end. Thanks, guys. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hold on. There's one more slide. Where is it? There it is. Actually, it's got my Twitter.